What's up guys, welcome back. I know it's been a while, I've been pretty busy. Got a few jobs done on the cruiser that I haven't filmed. In the meantime, I've been playing around with some jet skis. So that's what this episode will be about. At the moment I have 5 of these bad boys and my shed's a mess, I've got shit everywhere. So today will be an episode on the Seadoo. I'll give you guys a little bit of a look over the cruiser because I know a lot of you guys are here for the cruiser content. So I'll just give you a little bit of a look over. The interior is complete. Finally, looking good. We got the seats in, all blacked out. We got floor mats, we got door trims, we got seals. It's all happening. I can't remember where we left off now. I think we had the bull bar color coded. We got superior billet arms in, so we got a fair bit happening. But yeah, as I said, for now we'll leave the cruiser. I'll do a walk around video for you guys. But yeah, let's jump onto this jet ski. All right, I'll show you guys what we got going on here. So we have the 2021 Seadoo 300. Now I picked it up without a trailer as is. I've hardly even looked at it. The supercharger's grenaded and apparently the bottom end bearings are gone as well. We'll strip this thing down and figure out what's going on with it. So here's the parts that it come with. We've got the intercooler, supercharger. It's done a great job of that. Destroyed it. And we got a couple of things in here, pipes, exhaust pipes, intercooler pipes, bolts and whatever else. I have ordered a new supercharger. I have that here somewhere in a box. I need to find it, and some gaskets and whatever else we need. So now I have pulled down another 300 motor that I'm going to use for parts. This is from my 2017 300. So we have PDO housing, that's good. Block's no good, I need to get this repaired. But we have a good balance shaft, set of rods, crankshaft, oil pump, suction pump, we've got a water pump and a flywheel assembly. I'm hoping that we can pull this thing down and get this thing rebuilt and running all in this one episode, as long as I have everything I need. So let's get into it. Okay, let's get started by pulling the seat and top here off so you can access the motor. I think this whole thing there we go, it's already unbolted, perfect. Now this is essentially how I got the ski. I haven't touched it at all. This is exactly how it come, coils hanging out, plugs are still there, no supercharger. Here we go, oil filter. What do we got? I think this was full of metal. Yeah, there's a bit of metal in there. You guys that don't know much about jet skis, this is called your carbon ring. Now this is what stops the water from coming into the hull. It has a carbon ring here on the drive shaft and it just runs on that stainless steel plate. Now if you cook this by running your jet ski too long out of water, then the next time you take your jet ski out, it will sink. So it's always a good idea to run your jet ski out of water on the trailer no longer than 30 seconds. Otherwise you will cook this thing and sink your jet ski. Okay, so here I have to pull out the jet pump and IBR. Now to get these out, they seem to be different on every ski, but the 13mm bolt under here that I pull out. Once that's out, then we can access this one here. I think there's a special procedure to put it in like maintenance mode, the IBR, but I've always managed to just get them out by unbolting them. Okay, the other one here is behind the steering, so we can just turn the steering to access that. Okay, now I've got this part of the jet pump off. I've just taken out the two 13mm bolts and then the steering cable. Here's the steering cable. Now with that off, I can access the IBR through here. So instead of putting it into the service mode, don't know how you do that. We can just get in here. Now we just have 2 more bolts. We got one here, one on the other side. Okay, there we go. Now we have access to the jet pump. Now we need to pull the jet pump out so we can get the prop shafts out of the back of the motor. So it's just these 4 13mm nuts and it'll come right out. Okay, just got those nuts off. Should be some washers on there, I think. Yep, there's washers. Okay, easy as that. I got these other 2 washers here from the bottom, and that is everything. Let's have a look at this jet pump. Okay. Feels alright. A little bit of resistance, but looking at the grease and stuff, it's probably only just been rebuilt. Prop looks okay. Wearing's not too bad. I do have another wearing there, so I might slide that in. Yeah, alright. Okay, there's our prop shaft. Now there is little O-rings up here as well. You got to make sure they don't fall out like that. I do have new ones of these that I've ordered. They are here somewhere too. Okay, so I do have a little bit of a trick to getting these carbon rings off. So the carbon ring, to get them off, you have the boot here. Now I've pulled the clamp off, and usually I slide them up as much as I can, but this newer style it's a bit hard to do that. So we need to get some clearance between the carbon ring and the stainless steel plate, because underneath here there is a circlip. So we need to push this plate this way to get the circlip. Now when I do that, the whole shaft moves out of the engine. So there is a special tool you're supposed to buy to put across here and across these 2 bolts. I ain't doing that shit. All I do is I get a couple of washers, drop them straight in here. That'll take up our space. Bolt the pump back on with a couple of bolts. Might chuck some more. I'll just put all the washers in there, fuck it. Okay, so now we just bolt the pump back on, just loosely, and that will take up our space and stop the prop shaft from moving back. Okay, so now that I've bolted that pump back on, I just push this back by hand, and here we go. We've got the clip right here, little C-clip. Let's try and knock that out. There we go, there's our clip. Now we will be able to pull the shaft out of the engine. Okay, so now I've unbolted the pump again. Drop these 4 washers out of here. There's one more in there somewhere. Where are you? Oh, there we go. Okay, got those back out. There's the pump. Now we should be able to just pull the shaft straight out. A little bit of force. All right, there is our shaft. You got to make sure you have this on the end there too. Sometimes it gets stuck in the motor. Okay, here's the carbon ring, stainless plate. I think I have a spare one of those if that's no good. And I noticed this popped out of the boot here. Now this is another little bearing. Goes in here on the back of the motor, and if that pops out, it'll pump all the oil out. This is oil pressure behind here, so we want to make sure that's in there nice and tight. I may have to put another clamp on there. I'm not sure why that actually popped out. All right, now that we've got the jet pump out, prop shafts out, we can continue on pulling the motor out. So I'll chuck you guys back on a time lapse and we'll get into that. All right, got the motor out. Didn't take too long, only about an hour or something. It actually looks in pretty good condition, so there's no corrosion or anything in the valves, manifold, everything looks fine. So we'll get this thing ripped apart and see what's wrong with it. All right, I think I'm gonna start with the suction pump, pull that off and check the screen. That's the easiest to get to, it's just down here. About to stop and see if there's any metal in the screen. That'll give us a good idea if there's anything wrong with the bottom end or not. Obviously the oil filter is full of metal, but that could have been the starter drive and the supercharger. So maybe the bottom end's all right, who knows. I was just checking the engine oil before I went and pulled this suction pump off, and it's actually pretty clean. So there's oil in it still pretty clean. The reason I'm pulling the motor out to check the bottom end is because the guy that I bought the ski off, he told me he took it to Seadoo and they put a camera down the block. I don't know where they put the camera, but they put a camera in it and said the bottom end was gone. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna do my own diagnosis anyway before I completely strip it. The dog's trying to bite my arm off here. Stop it, stop it. Ah. All right, let's suck this oil out. Yeah, take the dipstick, you can have that. Off you go. Happy? There you go. All right. I'm waiting for the oil to drain. I'm just going to pull this rock cover off. See if there's anything interesting under here. We know you don't like the rattle gun, mate. All right. Okay, well. There we go. Nice and clean, that's good. I'll just get a torch and just inspect for any metal filings in the top end here. I can't see any metal filings at all in the top end, which is a good sign, because usually they would make their way up there if bearings are on their way out. So I just seen a bit of a crack in here, and that explains why that bearing fell out when I pulled the PDO shaft out. Now I think what's happened is this has, let's get this wire out of here. Now this obviously explains why there's so much oil in the bottom of the hull, because like I said before, there's oil pressure bond here and there's cracks all over this thing. You can see them up here. I think what's happened is when the supercharger has exploded, it's actually hit this. You can see a dent in the hose clamp here. So it's hit this and knocked that, and that's why it's pumped all this oil out. So you also do have an oil pressure outlet here for the blower, which is another place that oil could have been coming out. But yeah, good that I've noticed this, because if I had to put the engine back in and not notice this, it would have drained the sump pretty quick. So I'll bang a new one of them on it. Here we have the suction pump off. Now I can see a fair bit of metal in there, just here in front of the screen. You see it there. So we'll get this thing pulled apart and inspect the gears inside. So we'll just pull this screen out of here. Just put the camera down so you can see. All right, there's a lot of metal in that screen. Look at that. But that is a good thing, because it's doing its job. There's not a lot on the other side, you know, so that is a very good thing. Pull this apart. All right. So you can see a little bit of wear on the plate there. That's pretty standard. However, I do have a new one of these, so that's good. And I also have a new set of gears if I need them. Yeah, you can see a fair bit of metal has gone through this pump. So these gears will be put aside, and I'll put the new set of gears that I have bought into here. But I also have the other suction pump I showed you earlier on, so I can pull that apart and inspect it. This should be fine because the bearings were all good in that engine. So I could just put that pump straight on. So even the housing has a little bit of damage to it as well. So yeah, we won't run this again. We'll just use the other suction pump. I'll just stick this back together for now so nothing goes missing. All right, we'll set this aside. Now, even seeing that amount of metal in the pump, I'm still not too worried about the bottom end because, you know, the pump and the screens are doing its job. The screen's clearly doing its job. We still have an oil filter after that as well, so a lot of the supercharger material may not have got to the bottom end. However, if the engine did run dry, then we'll have an issue with the bottom end. So, but I don't see that because like the top end is all fine. There's no filings or anything in the top end, so you'd think the top end would lose oil pressure first. And I have seen these before with that amount of metal in them, and the bottom end is like brand new still. So hopefully that's the case with this one. However, I've got to pull the PDO housing off now and inspect the other oil pump and screen and clean out all the metal anyway from the supercharger. So that's the next job. Let's get this PDO housing off. All right, there is a fair few bolts to get this PDO housing off, whole way around. Just start from one side and go around. Now there's also a bolt behind the water pump, so we have to take the water pump off. All right, I decided to pull the engine mount off the back, and I'm going to flip the motor up on its nose, so it makes it a bit easier to get this PDO housing off. That's much better. Here we go, PDO housing's off. The screen actually fell out on the ground when I pulled it off. And there's not a whole lot of metal. There's a little bit of metal in there, but not as much as I was expecting, which is that's good. Now there is a lot of metal I can see here. Yeah, like a dark color oil. A lot of metal. Oh, there's a heap of metal here too. Right here. So that'll be going straight into the through to the suction pump. That's why the suction pump had so much metal in there. All right, what else we got? Well, the starter drive still looks okay. The jet for the supercharger, that's where the oil pressure comes out to oil the supercharger. That's still alright. Alright, well, the supercharger exploding didn't really do a whole lot of damage. Usually they make a mess of the starter drive and this little jet, and they make a huge mess. That's not the case with this one. So, alright, well, with the amount of metal in here, I'm going to have to pull the bottom end off, regardless, you know, to clean all this metal out. Alright, I'll chuck you guys back up here and we'll keep going. I was just looking at the oil leaking out of this motor, and I can see some copper filings. So it's not looking good for the bottom end. But anyway, the motor's upside down now. Shed's a mess, but we'll get this thing stripped off. Have a look at these bearings. All right, bottom end is apart, and I think I can see the issue already. Yeah, I'll just show you. Now, looking at all here, it all looks completely fine, right? All the journals, nothing wrong with them. Then we're coming up this way, and it is black. So obviously that's an issue there. All right. Interesting. Oh wow, what's going on here? What? Okay, that makes no sense. Is that loose or what? What's happening here? That is very interesting. Okay. So we have one loose conrod, yet this motor has not been opened. Like it's an unopened engine. What is going on here? Okay, one loose conrod. That main is smoked. Doesn't look like it's spun, luckily, so that will mean that our housing is okay. So for the conrod to be loose, that would have caused an oil pressure drop, and that would be why it spun bearings on that conrod. I guess they're spun. Let me check. Let's loosen this. Have a look. I did not expect to find this at all. Like that just makes no sense for the supercharger to explode and have a conrod finger tight. Wow. Okay, yeah, that's smoked. That rod's got to go in the bin. They're a fractured rod, so can't resize that. Yeah, I don't understand what's happening here now, because here's the supercharger. Why would that happen at the same time as a conrod coming loose? I don't get it. What the hell? Like that bearing's clearly flogged. Okay, well, if it lost oil pressure, that's cool, but if it lost oil pressure, why are the other journals fine? What? I don't get it. The guy that I bought it off, he told me specifically the supercharger blew up. It leaked all the oil in the hull, and then he took a Seadoo and they diagnosed the bottom end to be gone. So, but the engine was not stripped, it was complete. This engine has not been opened at all. Like all the sealant, everything was factory. This is all factory sealant. So yeah, I'm pretty confused here as to why that has come loose. Even if it spun the bearing, it doesn't make sense why it's finger tight. Like, I don't know, that's fucking weird. Anyway, well, good news is the block's obviously okay. Balance shaft is, yeah, it's not too bad. I do have a better one there, so I think I'll bang a new crank balance shaft in this thing and we'll get her back in the water. I don't know what's going on there. That makes no sense to me at all for the supercharger to be blown up as well as having a conrod finger tight. I don't get it. That doesn't make any sense to me. So if anyone can make sense out of that, let me know. I'll be interested. However, yeah, I'm just going to keep going with this thing now. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pull the cylinder head off because that conrod is stuffed. So pull the head off, pull the piston out, leave the other two in there, swap over the conrod with the good one that I have here, and then I will put the good crank in here, good balance shaft, and get this thing back in the water. All right, got the engine flipped up the other way now, so I'm going to begin to pull the rock cover off, cylinder head off, timing chain, so I can drop the crank out, and then I'll pull that one piston out so we can swap the conrod over. Also, obviously, clean out the entire block from metal. So we'll go and pull that off now. Alright, if you ever pulling one of these cylinder heads off, there is two Torx bits hidden down here. You have to pull those out before pulling the cylinder head off. Otherwise you will find yourself with some dramas. When the head is off, it's got the head gasket here. Now these head gaskets actually are reusable, multi-layered steel. You just got to make sure you clean them out properly between the layers, and then you can use copper spray on them. But I do have a new one, so I'll be using a new one. For the price of them, it's probably not really worth reusing it. Now I can see a little bit of scoring on this cylinder here. It's probably from all the material on the metal from that conrod being thrown up through the oil squirter and whatever. All right, here's the damage. So one piston, the skirting is destroyed. So I'm gonna have to give this block a little bit of a hone. I do have some spare pistons as well, so that'll be handy. Now you can see when they fail a conrod bearing, the piston comes down too far, hits on the crank. You see here and here, there and there. And then also the conrod will hit on the block. You can see here, you can see over here as well. So yeah, but luckily it didn't spin a main, so that'll be good. Tidy up the block, give it a little hone. Needs a good wash. I'll pull these other two pistons out, inspect all those, inspect the rings, all the bearings here. So they're still okay, like they're not great, but there's not really much wrong with them, but I'll put new ones in them anyway. And they should be standard. Try and see here somewhere. Usually they have standard written on them, but maybe not. Anyway, I will continue on. So it's a new day. I've washed down the block, inspected it, and it's not looking too good. I'll show you guys what I'm looking at, but unfortunately it's not gonna happen. So here is the block all cleaned down. Upon further inspection, I have noticed that one of the cylinder walls is pretty well toast. So I'll just flip it around and show you guys what I'm looking at. So this is the one with the piston that was grabbing the skirt. You know, a little hone that'll probably come up okay, that's not a problem. But the major issue is with cylinder 3. It's pretty common on these blocks apparently, but it is absolutely toast. These are plasma coated, I think, and it's just all chipped away, so you won't get a good ring seal on that at all. It must have been like this for a while. I don't know how long it's been running like this. Like, it'll obviously run, but you will have pretty low compression on the cylinder. So fortunately, I'm gonna have to get the block sleeved now. So these 1630 blocks are notorious for this issue. And the way to fix it is these are an aluminium liner. The way to fix it is to bore it out and put steel liners like the 260s have, the 1503s. So that'll be going to the machine shop, sort that out. If we didn't have this issue here, we could have had this thing up and running. Like, I wasn't too worried about the scoring, just give that a little hone. And that'll be fine. Here's all our parts that we had. So here's a failed crankshaft, balance shaft. Here's the new spare balance shaft and crankshaft that I have. 3 conrods. So the plan was to swap out 1 conrod and 1 piston. And the other issue that I've got is in my box of spares over here, Seadoo parts, I have a set of 3 260 pistons. Now they are the same bore size, so that wouldn't have been a problem, but because they're a longer stroke in the 1630s, the skirting is longer for the piston to pull further down the block. So unfortunately, they're not going to work. I did have a 1630 piston from the engine I got this crankshaft and stuff out of, but it is pretty toast. It's so corroded, so not a chance I'm going to run that. While the block is being machined, I'll go ahead and order all the parts that I need. I'll order a whole new set of pistons. Maybe I'll build a little forge combo out of it. So forge rods, pistons, ARP bolts, mains and head studs. I wouldn't mind building a nice motor for this ski anyway. I'll probably keep it, maybe put a turbo on it at some point. So I guess it's just, yeah, instead of rushing it back together with mixed and matched parts, just do it all once properly. It's unfortunate not being able to finish it all in this one episode. I was pretty keen to get this thing smashed out and back in the water, but unfortunately it's not going to happen with what we've got. So we'll just, we'll just do it once, do it right. And also we'll just go over real quick of the diagnosis of the engine, of what failed and why. So originally the metal that I was seeing in the oil filter and stuff, like I said, when these superchargers fail, bearing in the front here fails, and also the back, and all of this material goes inside the engine. So that's what I thought had happened, and that's where the metal was coming from. Now for the conrod to be loose, I have no idea why that's happened. So obviously what's happened is the conrod's come loose, it's dropped oil pressure because of a bleed off, and that's why it's destroyed this main bearing here right next to the same journal. So that's obviously why that's gone, and the rest are fine. And also this is the last journal to get oil. So this is the first journal, last journal. So obviously pressure bleed off, loss of oil pressure to here. Now for the supercharger to fail, I don't know why that has happened. Now I'm not sure where the supercharger stands. We obviously get the oil from this jet here. Now I'm not sure if that's the last to get oil as well. I'll have to look at the schematic, but if they're anything like a turbo, they only need a couple of seconds of oil pressure loss for them to destroy themselves. So maybe that's what's happened. I guess, yeah, they could be the same as that. I don't know. I'm not sure how the oiling system on a supercharger works. So that's the only thing that makes sense to me, is what's happened is a slight oil pressure drop, and the RPM of the supercharger has been 7,000 RPM, and it's just destroyed the bearings instantly. So that is possibly what's happened. Well guys, we'll have to leave it at that, unfortunately. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one when we put this thing back together, hopefully with a nice combo. Cheers.